My beautiful mother died when I was only 8 years old of diphtheria. And then shortly after, when I was 10 years old, my father, who I adored, died from alcoholism. In my teens, I was sent to a finishing school in London, and it turned out that those were the happiest days of my childhood. Later, I married Franklin Roosevelt in 1905. During the first 10 years of our marriage, I bore 6 children. So as you can imagine, I was either always having a baby or getting over having a baby or about to have a baby. Very busy time. When I learned of Franklin's affair with Lucy Mercer, I threw myself into a variety of pursuits. I mobilized members of the League of Women Voters. I lobbied for bills. And I promoted women, workers' rights, and the women's trade union. Because of these radical activities, J. Edgar Hoover kept a file on me for many years. Franklin was stricken with polio, but in 1928 his health improved, and he ran for the seat of governor of New York, and he won. 4 years later, he became the president of the United States of America, and I became the First Lady. Then came the Great Depression, and during that time, I devoted my life to visiting those hardest hit by poverty. The World War I veterans, of course, sharecroppers, those who lived in city slums. I held more than 300 press conferences as the First Lady. This was very unusual. And not only that, but I restricted it to women journalists.
Ooh.
I knew that would force the media to hire their first women reporters because they couldn't have access to the First Lady unless they were women. You go, girl! During World War II, Admiral Halsey, the bells are ringing. Admiral Halsey arranged for me to visit hospitals on 17 different South Pacific islands. I spoke with over 400,000 men and women who had been injured. I encouraged women to join the defense industry. I urged them to broaden their horizons, and I cautioned them against marrying too hastily. I promoted federal funding of child care centers, but short-sightedly, after the war, they closed them and fired women from their jobs. I was fortunate as the First Lady to have my own newspaper column. It was called My Day, and I got to write about my life in the White House. It was published 6 days a week in 180 newspapers. A year after Franklin died, in 1945, President Truman appointed me to the United Nations, where I served as the chair of the Human Rights Commission. Our task was to serve as architects to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This was adopted by member states of the United Nations, and those years with the UN were the most important of my life. Later, President John F. Kennedy invited me to chair the President's Commission on the Status of Women. The commission compiled reports documenting the pervasiveness of sex discrimination across the U.S. After leaving the commission, I continued my volunteerism with the American Association of the United Nations, now the UNA-USA. I even came here to Balboa Park and visited the United Nations building here. My goal, to live my remaining active years promoting the United Nations, civil rights, women's rights, human rights, was fully realized. Thank you so much for being here. Woo.